Material Girl is the moniker by which this Philadelphia experimental hip-hop and electronic artist goes by. A relatively enigmatic artist signed onto the No Agreements label. This is their debut outing. In a lot of respects, this album is very all over the place. It's kaleidoscopic. There are many different variables going on all at once on a single track, let alone this album. This project covers a wide array of sounds from electronic music to experimental hip-hop, plunderphonics. There's a lot of sampling done on this album. There's some avant-garde jazz worked into some of these tracks. There's a lot of horns and, again, a lot of sampling, a lot of beats as well. Really, the best way to categorize this project and this album is just by sound collage. This album reminds me a lot of that Slauson Malone project that was released last year, A Quiet Farewell. And while that album was very all over the place, very heavy on sampling and just instrumentally just dense and just thick, this project has a little more going for it. And while I do like that album, Slauson Malone's album, I think this album is just slightly a step ahead. For one, I find the ideas to be a little more refined and the experimentation is not done throughout the entire project. It's not just this one long sound piece. Maybe on a given track it might feel like that, but all of these songs aren't connected, which on some projects I might point that out as a flaw, but in this scenario I think it actually works to the album's benefit. It doesn't feel like I'm cycling through a lot of these samples that are just being placed into a track onto a DAW and just kind of being worked on. It feels like there's a lot of musicality going on within a single track. Like, for example, the track No Runner, where the song is probably the most accessible track on this album. There are these cycling beats that sound like they were pulled from a hip-hop song, a very fast-paced hip-hop song at that. It's murky, it's dark, it's eerie, but then the track gives way to this very expressive, chaotic, and insane free jazz solo with horns and pianos being smashed and played all over the place. Now, this doesn't happen for too long and then starts to bow down into a more accessible piece of work. The percussion comes back into the fold on this track, and then this time you have subtle horns underneath the instrumental that are complementing each other in a great way. And then towards the last minute of the song, the track becomes beautiful, very pleasant to the ears, very nice. You get these very heavenly and angelic vocal harmonies that are just rising from the ashes, along with this shaker instrument that's just kind of going back and forth in the background. The track then cuts off and goes into the next track, Platypus. This track is one of two I would classify as long, this song being 8.5 minutes. The penultimate track, Funeral Parade of Roses, is 9 minutes. And this 9-minute track actually features a guest verse from Coin Locker Kid, and while the instrumental under his verse is really chaotic and a little all over the place, it's still very much done well. The best way I could really describe this track and the instrumental under it is if IDM and drum and bass music mixed together with hip-hop. But then you have these experimental bits that are just wild and all over the place. Bells are going off in the background, you have subtle horns underneath everything. And while on the surface it might sound hectic and chaotic, there's a subtle hint of beauty with this instrumental. It is very nice and almost elegant. However, the track Flood I would classify as the most elegant track on this album, if I could classify a song on this album with that term. During the middle portion of this song, I don't know if it's a sample or not, but there are these very elegant, enchanting, and beautiful vocals that are accompanied with these horn hits. There's also a male vocalist that comes into the fold as well, and it just happens to be like so damn good. It is so damn good. It sounds more like a throwback to that soulful neo-soul era of music, maybe in the late 80s, early 90s. There's a lot going on this record, and really I could name everything that goes on. Maybe I couldn't, but still. This record in one breath is hectic, chaotic, very kaleidoscopic, but on the other, it's well-crafted, creative, and wonderfully produced. And I think this record is put into words beautifully in the description of the Bandcamp page of this project, somewhere between a scrapbook and a puzzle. And I think that's a very interesting way to put this album into words. it is kind of like a puzzle where you have to piece together things to get the full picture. But on the other hand, it's almost like a scrapbook where there are different ideas, but they all come together on a single page to convey the same idea. There are some moments on this record that I felt like were a little less than stellar in my eyes. The ending of the record could have definitely been panned out a little bit better. It's very mild in the delivery. And the opening track kind of left a lot to be desired for me personally, and the last 2 seconds bring back so many traumatic memories of the time I used to go searching on YouTube for some creepy stuff. Really, if you know the last 2 seconds of this track in particular, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, other than those moments, I thought this was a really enjoyable album, a really interesting, creative, and unique approach to the sounds of instrumental hip-hop, experimental hip-hop, plunderphonics, and sample-based music as well. And I'm really intrigued to see where Material Girl can go from here. Personally, I'm gonna give this album a very moderate A-. However, I am curious to know what are your thoughts and opinions on this album down below. Let me know what albums you want me to review next, and that is it. Leave a like, comment, share, do whatever you want. Let me know how I can improve future videos down below. Remember, that's only my opinion, because music is subjective.